ready, are you? Sure. Except Charlie's not here yet.
And then now we're on the blue. My house is cold. Everybody was so cold at school, I was just laughing. My room was hot and it's cold. Cold. I have never been cold. I could sit on a lot of ice and we're cold. It's not bad.
Seat in the sun can be cold.
I do not like the smell of heat. When that air comes on, I can't stand it. It'll be hot again, but last night we got coming down, she would turn it all the way up, and it'd be like, yeah. I said, y'all dress for the weather, you don't need to run around in your boxes or
You guys take a look at the live agenda. Stuart, it's up to you how you want to proceed. I don't know if you want to get started or you want me to.
Well, since compensation was the very first topic we brought up a long time ago, what you got?
I think it always is. Just as you guys know, we went to executive session and discussed compensation. We spent a majority of the time in executive session discussing what our possibilities were, and I do not have any compensation to offer as far as from a pay for performance standpoint. We've gone through and we've looked at all the, as we committed, we looked at all the areas where we felt like we could try and build up opportunities, and we do not have any available funds to offer a compensation package for pay for performance. In that, we also discussed the pre-K inclusion as far as a similar ability to get pre-K a best and brightest type award to those folks, and the board did authorize for pre-K to be included
That's good.
at the rate of $1,000 per. I've got an MOU that prepared for you guys to review, so I'll pass a copy of that over to Mr. Clapp and let him take a look at it. And if we reach a point where you guys want to caucus and discuss it, we can do so. And it's something your board, I think they've agonized like everybody else. I think they're disappointed that the funds are not available. I don't feel like we need to rehash, every single financial scenario that we've discussed pretty thoroughly. I know you guys have looked at a lot of different documents and probably had some outside eyes look at books and things also. I know you guys are making tremendous efforts towards Tallahassee, as we are also superintendents in Tallahassee as we speak. Banging on the doors and talking to the people and advocating for funding for teacher compensation. And I think we have some similar viewpoints on that. We want local control of it, and it needs to be included in BSA, and we need to see some things that we can actually bring to the bargaining table and work out to make sure it gets in everyone's hands. You know, the last kind of step was looking at the third calc coming in, which came in at the wee hour of last Friday. In typical fashion, they usually send things about 5:15 on a Friday. So finance is going through the analysis of thorough impact of third calc. The good news is we didn't wind up losing a whole bunch of money, and our third calc is something that, you know, it helps us by not having a tremendous negative impact, but there will be presentations to the board in the very near future on the impacts of that financially. There's also some things on the horizon that are a little bit alarming. That as we look at next year, you know, I think everybody's kind of wondering what's going to happen. I know you guys are following legislative session and the different bills that are being introduced. I think the funding is all over the place, depending on which side of the house you look at, and then which party you look at, and who's introducing what bills, and who's included and who's not. And, you know, one thing I think for sure is that they're not going to get it done the right way. It's just way too convoluted. So we're a little weary about that. You know, say for instance, they do the base salary increase like they're talking about for all teachers.
Like they did last year,
I think I'm talking about the minimum
or
salary.
the BSA that was
Yeah.
suggested for teachers last year.
Yeah, and essentially they'll adjust and then apply associated costs that go along with it when it comes to BSA. And I'll get to that a little bit in a second, because there's another thing that's on the horizon that's a little alarming, but they've got, so I'm worried, I think what common words, they're gonna, you know, earmark money for teacher salary increases, and it's not gonna include our veteran teachers that, you know,
That's where they're
we
at.
know the story. So I think your superintendent and the district lobbyists are lobbying against that, and they want us to have local control. So just know we're advocating on that part. Another thing that introduced the bill for FRS increase, I don't know if you guys have seen that yet, was introduced, and it's based on the actuary that they use for the state and the Department of Management Services. They are recommending a pretty steep hike, and the House, that's in the Senate bill, and the House hasn't filed a bill that I've seen yet, but they use the same actuary, and usually if you go by the past, it's pretty much in lockstep in the way the statute reads. It will likely go through. What that will result in is will be impacted by about $3.2 million with that FRS increase. And then that's the increase is on the management, the employer contribution side. So in order to outweigh that, some of our initial estimates, we would need, again, probably about the same $75 BSA increase we got last year, just to cover the FRS rate hikes. So that's something we're extremely weary of at this point. It's about 4 times higher than last year's FRS increase. So that's those are a couple of things we were looking at as far as what's on the horizon. Back to what we've looked at, third calc is kind of our last thing to see if we would see some increase there that would be significant enough to provide increases for employees, and we could not. Like I said, the impacts of that, Mr. Ward will be presenting on that to the board in the very near future. So that's what I have for a compensation update. Not exactly the news I would like to deliver, but it's where we're at from a fiscal standpoint of the district at this time. You guys have some questions?
Well, I have a question. So this compensation was really for last year. So for the beginning of this year, where we always have said we want to have money in the teacher's hands at the beginning of the school year. So you're predicting that there's going to be nothing there.
Yes, I do not have compensation to offer
So
for
that's
this
2
contract.
2 years, this year, 2018,
This year.
18,
Then
19,
you're always on
19,
lag
20.
ratify the following year, so whereas,
Year before did not.
yeah, it's the year before that, so we basically sandwiched last year between a year of
So
not
that's 2
managed.
years with no cost of living or anything.
That is correct, not consecutive, but 2 years within the
And
last
is that
year.
because we're making so much money?
I don't know what you mean.
I'm being sarcastic. that's all.
Right.
Caucus, please.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Let me make one statement first.
Sure.
So my question is, when was the last time that the teachers in Lake County did receive compensation other than something they might have gotten from the state, like a bonus?
Last year.
Sort.
Last year.
Last year.
Last year they did
Last
get,
year
did they
they
get a
did some.
percentage?
And not the year before again.
Okay.
So
Then-
Now you're
72 was
saying
nothing.
nothing this year, and you're basically already saying nothing next year.
So I'm
I don't know what the legislature will provide for us in terms of BSA increase, which is where additional funding would come for increases. And if you look at, the last 3 years, that's what we just discussed. You look at, if you look at a stretch of time over the last 10 years, it's been $25 million in increased teacher salaries over the last 10 years. And part of the problem is if you look at our trends of where we've been funded versus where we're ranked in teacher salaries, we've traditionally been ranked higher in teacher salaries than we have been in funding in comparative to other districts. So we've reached a point where we can no longer continue to run at that pace. So it's
But yeah,
unfortunate in the last few years that we've reached a point where we can't provide any more of that at the moment.
But am I right that you're low?
Okay, let me make a comment and then we can caucus. About a year ago, I addressed the board and I told them, do not rely on the legislature to fix your money problems because that's not going to happen. You may have to look at changing your paradigm on how you do business. Well, basically, they rely on the legislature. We hedged our bet with our own lobbyists and got the legislature to increase the base student allocation for teacher salaries, $75 per student. Yet, and we fully informed the board what our lobbyists were doing all the way down the line, even before the budget was completed. And so that increase in base student allocation that was available for teacher salaries was used in other areas. So by telling us, after looking at 6 months, and I'm disappointed, we have not changed any of our paradigms. Basically, any family, any business, whatever is important, they will find a way to spend money. And even though we had school board members say, we've got to take care of our troops, we've got to do this, it didn't happen. So now we're saying even next year, it won't happen. So, on that note, let's do a caucus.
I think I'd like to respond before we caucus. I think, I can't tell you what's going to happen next year. You guys are saying that. I'm not saying that we won't be
Like
able
you
to
just
do
said,
anything.
the way.
What I'm clarifying right now is, I'm not saying we can't do anything for next year, so I want that to be clear. You guys are stating that, and I'm telling you, that's not what I'm explaining. I do not know what the legislature is going to come forward with as far as even a plan or dollars. It's not even just, you know, what they'll do for us in BSA anymore. And now it's so manipulated, we have no idea what next year is going to look like or what costs they're going to, you know, tie our hands with, or what restrictions are going to be applied there. So I think when we talk about paradigm shifts, last year we were able to give a raise, and that was based on, restructuring and making cuts and doing some
Let me
things.
stop
that
right
they did.
there. Let me stop right there. The cuts that were made in order to give those were cutting bargaining unit teachers. That is where the money came from, not from administration, as we like to hear people say, we restructured administration. No, you cut bargaining unit teachers who were assigned to the administration. So it was on the teacher's own back. Before that, it was moving from a 4-period day to a 7-period day, which allowed teacher raises. So basically, all of the raises teachers have gotten in the last 5 years was cutting our own unit in order to take that money. So I had to correct that because I keep hearing we made administrative cuts. No, there was no administrators cut.
That's not true. And I'm not saying that the bulk of cuts came in administration. I cannot say that.
Where were administrators cut?
But proportionately,
Where were administrators cut?
I can get you a list of folks, of positions that were cut.
And then we've added a whole bunch more. We added 52 professional managerial in the last year.
52 professional managerial.
Well, 45 teachers.
Who are those people? Tell me.
The mental health people.
Okay, how are those mental health people funded?
Well, we got a millage because we were told if teachers supported the millage, that would free up money for teacher raises.
I don't know who told you that, but it's not anyone part of our administration that told you that.
Okay.
That's your assumption.
No, that was
The purpose of the millage was to meet the mental health needs and safety needs of our students in our schools.
So therefore, all
Now,
of the,
you hope that there would be some byproduct of freeing of dollars in that, but there was no intent to create a windfall to provide teacher raises,
so
and nor
therefore
was
all
that
of the
impression
people we
given.
hired are able to bill Medicaid for their mental health services.
As far as when it comes to Medicaid, there are some of those services that they can bill for, but not all of those services. And where we're at with the Medicaid billing is, we just got started on that, and we're showing progress. But Medicaid billing is never going to show the windfall to provide enough. It's not a honeypot. It will allow for the district to become more financially stable, so we can do things as we manage better and try and recoup some of the services that we're providing for those kids. I mean, it's a contribution to things, but it's not something that's ever going to be a generating force towards giving additional compensation to folks.
But I think it's important regarding the clarification you wanted to make, and let's make that clarification.
Okay.
Right now, you're telling us nothing for this year.
Correct.
You want to make sure it's clear that you are not necessarily saying there's nothing for next year. You can't see the future, you can't predict.
Yes, sir.
So let me ask this question.
Okay.
Everything that is regarding input seem to come from external factors, which I'm considering the state, versus how the district does business and what it asks, millage. Okay? We accept the fact that we can't predict what the state is. You know my position on the state.
Yes, sir.
Are you telling me, can you tell me that regardless of external issues, which, by the way, are always going to be there, just like teachers, and let me choose my words carefully, are crucified every new year, as administration, whether it's at the varies, regional, or even the principal level, go with a fine-tooth comb to try to understand why pass rates aren't where they are, or other metrics aren't where they are, when the vast majorities aren't about whether or not a student knows what they're learning, but external factors. So we have our external factors, you have your external factors. Is the district at this point, in your knowledge, planning on going to the community, laying out the case, and asking for millage so we don't continue this again and again and again? The last time, when we've had this conversation with board members, the answer was no, they didn't think they could get it passed. Well, that was probably, where's the video there? That was probably the Tea Party-esques, etc., or at least the perception of them. So to be clear about next year, so we can communicate clearly, is the district planning anything to change the way it does business or raise money compared to what it's doing right now?
I think they're looking at both. I think each year when we go to looking at how we staff every level of our system here, I think we're going to have to inspect that every year to see what we can do and if there's anything we can do different to provide additional. From an additional millage standpoint, I think it's something that's being looked at very strategically at the moment. I think there is an appetite to take it out, but with the millage, I think you know that you got to be very careful because timing is everything, and politics do have an influence on it. And you want to make sure that you can't take it back multiple times. Each time you take it back, you probably got less likelihood of success. So I think being strategic about when that's introduced and what that looks like is very important. But I do think it's being looked at very heavily by the superintendent and by the board. They want to make sure that whatever efforts we put in is successful because it's not exactly free to do that type of business either. You know, you've got to get outside community members rally behind it, and if we're going to be successful with an initiative like that, it's going to have to be grassroots. So, and I would be not. I mean, I agree with you. A lot of cuts have been teachers, and a lot of when you look at. You know, there's things where we're trying to, make sure that our classroom teachers are taken care of also, and that class sizes, we manage that the best we can too. The teachers make up the majority of our workforce. So that is where a lot of cuts happen. But there's still a lot of administrative duties that have to be taken care of, and things that have to happen. I don't feel like we're extremely top heavy. I feel like we need to, if you guys, are saying, well, you need to look at your structure, I think we're doing that. And as we approach the season of planning for next year, we'll continue to do that.
Okay,
But
when
even
you were
if we
talking
didn't-
about the Medicaid, can you give me a figure as to how much the teachers, I don't believe there's anybody in administration that's bringing in the Medicaid money. I believe it's the teachers again. And I don't know, Charlene, is that who it is?
The bulk of your billing comes from your speech language and your therapeutic services.
Right.
And then we've got a couple other pockets that can bill that they'll never probably represent a tremendous percentage of the money that comes in from that, but we can definitely do better in those areas, and we're working to improve in those areas as we get further into the Medicaid road.
From what I remember, when the whole Medicaid billing began, I think part of the way that they presented it, and I believe it might have even come from the superintendent, was that this was going to be a great way to bring monies into the county. Am I right, Charlene?
Oh, yes, yes.
And so,
I think it is.
so this put a heavy burden on those people that have to do the billing, especially when this particular county has put certain restrictions on how they bill
And how often?
and how often, and how, you know, you have to bill within so many hours of doing the service, where I know in Seminole County, they bill once a month. Come to this place, we'll all bill together. Okay, it's a lot easier than, you know, I just finished therapy sessions and now by tomorrow I better bill. So you've put this huge burden on this group of teachers to bring money into the county. But now you're saying none of that money can go back to teachers.
And that's not necessarily
confused.
true.
Well, and I will also continue that conversation in
Okay.
saying that with the millage came the safety issues, which are wonderful and needed. But there is no stipulation that every school would receive a mental health liaison or the special. There is no specifications for, we just had to make sure that we had safety people and we had procedures and we had things like that. So the county decided to hire 46 people, and from what we are hearing, hardly any of them are billing because they don't have the certifications, or they can't, which I don't understand why, because they're mental health people, they should be able to bill. Number two, we also, number two, well, qualifications, certifications, same idea. Number two, we also hear that, well, some people haven't been trained. Well, why not? They made sure that the teachers were trained right away. So why are these other people not trained right away so that they can get the billing done also? You're saying that they're doing it in stages. Why? If a teacher says, it always seems like if a teacher has said, oh, well, we need training by this date, oh, look, it's done.
So when you're saying teacher, you're referring to speech language.
Speech language, we realized that was the first one that was, okay. So it's been,
So what other,
Now
I'm
you're
just asking to help me out, what other teachers are you talking about? So I can
no,
speak
I'm
to
talking
them.
about, well, mental health liaisons,
Psychologists.
psychologists, some of them are not even billing all the way because they haven't been trained.
Social workers.
The social workers, mental health liaisons, the specialists, mental health specialists,
So-
all of your therapy
Nurses.
people, nurses.
So if you look at your timeline of where, when we started billing Medicaid, a year and a half, is that safe window?
They should all be billing by
Okay,
now.
but, so the speech language, where, do I agree there probably needs to, is an additional responsibility in there? I think so. But to say that no money has gone back in that direction to enhance that program, there was a $3,000 stipend added supplement to our speech language therapists that did not exist prior to that. So to say that none of that went in that direction, I want to finish talk, at least express a few thoughts about being interrupted. So that's not necessarily accurate, but if you go back, that they did receive supplement they had not received before. And if you look across districts that bill Medicaid, that they do usually carry the lion's share of Medicaid billing. But back to your timeline of a year and a half, you know, have we met some resistance to billing? Yes, we have met some resistance to billing, but we've rearranged some things structurally, like moving our person that's in charge of that over to the finance side of the world so they can be directly under the CFO. And we look at some things that do need to be changed to try and enhance the billing process and try and generate some more funding out of that. But then if you look at your mental health liaisons, how far are they into their jobs? The mental health liaisons is a work in progress. We just came in with all these changes. These are all new mental health and safety initiatives that are going on in our schools. So the idea is to, work through it. So yes, we are working in phases to get as many people billing as we possibly can. And not all students that they're working with and services they are providing, I don't believe are billable services. However, where we can bill, we're trying to improve in those areas. And like I said before, it's not going to be some major source of revenue that's going to, provide increases for compensation for all teachers. However, it is something that's going to enhance the financial well-being of the district that you hope that all, blends into managing everything better every chance we get, which will in turn provide some opportunities to provide additional compensation in the future.
But that's, I think what she's saying is, I don't care how long a speech teacher was a speech teacher, when they were told you bill, that was a brand new thing for them to bill. So for you to now say, oh, well, these liaisons, these mental health people, they're just getting into their job. The speech teacher didn't know anything about billing, and she was immediately told, you will bill.
The 17 new therapists that are with us this year weren't given any grace period.
See?
They were trained within a week and had to be billing the next week.
Which is what I'm saying, that's not right. Anybody that's able to bill should be trained right away and should be doing it. Okay, teachers, same idea. If you had, they all were supposed to be trained in this mental health class and all this, again, that was supposed to be for the students. Well, the county decided that the teachers needed to be trained first, so the teachers could then give that training to the students. Were teachers paid for the training? No, they just were told, you have to do this and you get it done. Did teachers do it? Yes, we did it.
And then.
So where does that come from, the requirement for everybody to be trained in these mental health areas? It's something we've all got, we have to tackle it, and it's not an option not to have people trained.
So you got the millage for mental health and safety and security. Was any of that money used to reimburse the teacher money as they train students, or to cover their costs out of Fund 100 of them being trained themselves? Because that's all mental health and safety and security, so that could have easily have been charged to the millage, had we not spent all of the millage money in the first month.
That's a question for the CFO, of what we're able to build towards that. So
I know, I
that's
brought
a
that up
question
very
we have to
early.
ask him.
And I was told, what a great idea, but we've already spent the money.
Which again brings me back to the fact that did every school need a mental health liaison?
I think
We
that's,
have speech therapists that share buildings. So did we need 46 new positions? Again, a perception that teachers see that we bring on more people, and we hear that there are some of the schools that a teacher will contact a mental health person and they do nothing. They just say, well, not my job, or,
Here,
it's
you
not,
gotta fill the paperwork.
you have to fill out the paperwork, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. Again, more on the teacher, again.
I think as we're looking at the mental health liaisons and the things and the ways we are using that millage to provide mental health services to kids, I think it is a work in progress. I just have to be honest with that. It's one of those things that we just commented on how we're doing business, and we'll be looking at things as how we'll be doing business next year. Those conversations are occurring in the background. Do we treat every school the same? Because I know I've heard where there's some schools where your mental health liaisons are drowning in referrals. And then I know there's some where they don't have as much issues to deal with, or especially not the weight of the same issues. So I think we'll probably revisit that in the year to come. Okay, how do we reorganize these folks to make sure that our kids are receiving the appropriate support that they need?
And I've mentioned before, one of the issues of Lake County schools is we rush into something without truly vetting what the ramifications are going to be. Then we're spending a year fixing it or trying to adjust it.
I think you're ignorant if you don't adjust anything that you're trying to build for the right reasons. I don't feel like it was rushed into. I think there was a thought-out plan of how we can make sure that every kid has an opportunity to have their mental health issues addressed and dealt with. So now, we're looking at that plan and adjusting as we see fit
So
with
the
the
thought-out
needs.
plan was every mental health liaison was certified and would be able to do counseling and or billing if necessary.
I don't think billing was part of the plan with the mental health liaisons initially. I think it started with what are our possible student safety and mental health
See,
needs.
that's what I'm
And then
talking
it
about.
was built
Fully
from there.
vetting what we need to do, or how we're going to do it.
And are they all certified mental health counselors?
You've got varying qualifications and different things that the mental health liaisons hold. Some of them have different certifications than others. Part of the idea is to bring in a pretty broad background of people and fill the positions and make sure that we have that liaison to help get resources to where they need to go. So I can provide you guys with a list of, positions and what their qualifications are, but I can't quote them off the top of my head.
Did we ask for a caucus?
Yes, let's do a caucus.
There's more of us.
Are we staying? Are we leaving? We're going? Staying.
We're staying.
Okey dokey.
My days mixed up, so we have Monday off. So I think it was yesterday.
Are you
Tuesday.
taking her?
Yes, we probably will. So we're gonna have to work on somebody else who's at 2 schools,
Okay,
both schools.
I have contract people that were going to take your position.
Oh, really?
Yes, so I'm gonna switch them
Over to.
over.
So we won't have too much of, because I think, Amy was saying that with her contract, the company she's contracted with, they're not going to release until sometime in February anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm
So
trying to,
Charlie, I know I've read the interview Tuesday, which was yesterday.
okay, I'm just trying to get everybody covered for.
And I think she has a kid at our school, I think. We have to shake her. Yes, 2, yes.
In the caucus, 4:50.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much with the pre-K award. I've got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming that when it talks about the agree on the employer costs will be deducted from the amount, that's mirroring what the state did for the other best and brightest.
That is correct.
Okay, so given that there's a lawsuit on that, if that lawsuit prevails, will this be included in that?
I can't speak to that without legal counsel. What I'll tell you is that this will be enacted just like the other best and brightest MOU that we put
Now,
forward.
the other question I had is, I see pre-K instructional personnel. Is this also including ESE pre-K?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
And the TAs
And
that we talked
This,
about.
this is general fund dollars
so this
and not, this isn't bargaining for the
is just for.
SEIU.
I know, I think the dollar amount that we talked about though included that amount. That wasn't that the last time we talked? We asked for all of them to be considered.
But you can't,
Right.
you got, I hear you guys
That's
saying
SEIU.
it.
Okay.
And when I meet with SEIU, I will be discussing and I'll reiterate you guys' consideration of that also.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm turning it over to Ben.
First off, we thank you for the taking the request up the chain of command. We asked that for a specific reason, and it was very good of you to do that. It's important that the teachers are not just the largest group or the largest budget line, but that we are acknowledged and we feel that we are essential to what is delivered by this were very disappointed in the compensation discussion. We don't agree that there is no money this year. We believe we have offered several suggestions. However, those suggestions were relatively informal, which led to informal discussions. For example, we talked a little bit about discrepancies versus year ago, which was answered by the chief finance officer and such. We've talked about, and Kathy has done a pretty good job of analyzing some of the cuts that we would have recommended. And we've had a very healthy discussion about the current situation with the Medicaid billing, whether it's what's come in and what's come out. What we owe you is a formal request. We would like to schedule another meeting, and at that meeting, we'd like some time, but at that meeting, we will present you with our formal request and with all these items specifically spelled out, and we would request that you come back to us and explain to us why our recommendation is not feasible to deliver upon what we're requesting. We also will be looking for some firm plan from the management team, the administration, and the board so that we don't repeat this again. We need to do something different. We are going to wind up reporting to our staff, to our rank and file, if we don't have that a job that has gotten significantly harder in the last 2 years, whether we want to look at, oh, they know what they're learning, or some other metric that's yet to be proven in our schools, or whether it's external factors like 10 hours of mental health training that we all know was not particularly useful. Oh, but bullet points could have been done in an hour. And our costs have gone up as teachers. There was a millage. Some of us own property. And so we have increased costs that no additional compensation is going to continue to put us backwards. That does not send the message that we are valued members of the community, and for especially the more senior teachers who have a history now of feeling put upon and used to make the ends meet is leading to an even more significant morale issue. We should make sure that both sides agree on what it is and understand why it can or cannot be, even if we agree to disagree, because that needs to be communicated to every single teacher. So we would suggest at this point that we schedule the next meeting and that we kind of table.
Ben, don't forget the next other two items. Title I.
We decided to table that until next time.
Next time.
All right, got it.
If that's agreeable to all.
Absolutely. I appreciate all sentiments you guys have expressed today. I agree with your plan moving forward. I look forward to you guys' proposal and providing a response to you guys on that. So I appreciate you guys' consideration. Thank you.
Let's get out those calendars.
All right.
We're going to need some time to prepare.
Yes.
So we can set up the next time for bargaining, but then we can stay behind and set up our date.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I agree with Charlene, we need to make it at least 3 weeks in advance,
Right.
3 weeks further, because we're
Right.
going to need a few weeks.
Right.
4 weeks,
If not 4.
if not 4, okay, let's do 4. And
Well,
let's be honest, because the sense of urgency that we always have is based on getting money into the teachers' pockets.
yeah, we could make.
That's
it
a
3
moot
weeks.
point at this point, so.
3 weeks, but we'd have to do it like on, because 3 weeks would be the 12th, and that's an NTO, so, which means we'd have to do it like on Thursday.
13th would be an NTO.
I've got
12th is an NTO.
13th, I have a conflict.
A board meeting on Tuesday? Oh, our board.
Unless we change the board meeting.
So the 12th is.
Would the 4th be too soon?
Yeah, that's next week and then the week after. I think that'd be too soon.
So
How
let's
about
look
the
at,
20th?
why not the 13th?
He would,
I've got a conflict on the 13th.
Okay.
Did we say
How
the
about
19th?
Valentine's Day, so you can get teachers some help?
No. That's Friday.
I would love to do that.
Wednesday the 19th?
Love.
I won't.
You get up?
I'm not available.
Okay.
You're not here?
20th, the Thursday?
I can do 20th.
I could do 20th.
The 20th works for me.
So, February the 20th?
Does that work? For most of your, I mean,
If we
your-
do it over
yeah, it would be over,
tablet.
right, it would be over on your, that's fine. if you're-
As long as you guys are okay.
Unless you guys want to do it Lake Neal. Come on,
Would
guys.
you like that?
Come on down south.
that.
I know. Yeah,
Let's
I
do it.
didn't even bring it up. Didn't even mention
I
it.
don't have a problem with that.
Hey,
So, I have no problem with that.
If we voted on it, I have a feeling you might win.
4 o'clock.
You might.
So it would be at 4 then?
Mhm.
Thursday at 4?
And Chad, why don't we suggest, since I think it's almost understood, we'll bring the agenda to that meeting.
Absolutely.
So, trade you.
Oh, and it's soon today, right?
When did you say my name? No, I reappraise.
Charlie, have you heard anything about cheerleading?
Look at what they did.
Now, however, yesterday, we finally filled the position for the villages. So that means that Leesburg Elementary is the last position left. The company that is charging us the most has found the last 2 people. So I did go over again the information with her about, okay, we still have 1 more position to get filled. I also communicated with the therapist in New York yesterday. And she's still, she says her house is packed and ready to come, but there are still
Guys, we're
HR
done.
concerns.
I think we're done.
Okay.
So,
Thursday, they're coming at 5 or 6.
Yes.